All right, welcome to part 2 of this History of the English Language video on English in the British Isles from 1800 to the present day. In the last video, part 1 of this two-parter, we talked about how the major external factors influencing the development of English, and especially the convergence of different dialects to a greater degree of mutual intelligibility. Today we're going to talk more about those accents, those regions, those dialects. In this first video here, of course, we have just two very famous examples for Americans of English accents. Well, probably for older ones. I don't know how many people under 30 care that much about the Beatles or the Stones anymore. But the Beatles, of course, famously have a Liverpool accent, and the Stones famously have more of a London accent. And yes, you're going to hear me slaughter a lot of British accents today, so have fun with that. I hope it doesn't hurt too much. So let's start with the Southeastern varieties of the English accent. These are the most familiar to many of us because Southeastern England, of course, is where London is. And it's where most of the money and power is concentrated in Britain. It's where the media is concentrated. Some people have described England as being something like a very large city-state where London enjoys much greater supremacy or kind of hegemony over the rest of the country than any one city in the United States does. In the United States, of course, our financial capital is New York, our media capital is LA, and our political capital is Washington, D.C. Imagine if you combined all three of those together, and you would get London, one of the 10 largest cities in the world. And London and the draw of London has, since the Middle Ages, been a regularizing effect, standardizing effect on the English language. But there are different kinds of English spoken in London. And I'm going to leave aside for the moment the kinds of English spoken by the many African, Afro-Caribbean, and South Asian immigrants to London and talk about just the kind of the homegrown accents, so to speak. One of the more famous of these is the accent known as received pronunciation, or RP, or AWP. This is what we think of when we think of the upper class British accent, the kind of posh, as they like to say, British accent. Famous speakers include Emma Watson, pictured here, Stephen Fry, the royal family, John Cleese. I was just watching What We Do in the Shadows last night, and Matt Berry on that show definitely speaks in received pronunciation. This is a variety that is spoken by about 1% to 2% of the overall population. They just tend to be very rich, famous, or prominent, or highly educated members of the population. The more common kind of standard English these days is what's sometimes called estuary English. An estuary is kind of a marshy river delta, which is the southeast of England, east of London. And these include the counties of Essex and Kent. And this is spoken by Ed Sheeran, Jamie Oliver, the Beckhams, and it's increasingly the medium standard UK English. One amusing trend in the last year or two has been online British Americans making fun of British accent with the, if you've ever seen Tuesday in it. And this is the estuary English accent. It's interesting that when we make fun of British accents over here, we're not making fun of the posh upper class English accent, but the more kind of the everyday popular speech. And in that sense, we're reproducing some of the very intense feelings that people in the UK have traditionally had about accents, where people will, where accentism, they call it over there, and there is amply documented discrimination against people, and a lot of, we talked about, and when we were talking about African American vernacular English, we talked about stigma and the kind of attitudes that get attached to particular accents to varieties that are spoken, and this is in many ways a lot more intense in Britain than it is in the United States, where in Britain the accents vary much more widely. Even if you're not familiar with many British accents, they might all kind of sound the same to the typical American, but they sound substantially different if you pay close attention, and British people can certainly pick out minute differences between say like, well, we'll talk more about this. So estuary English is kind of your standard kind of like British accent that you hear these days from a lot of celebrities and actors and stuff like that. Cockney is the famous working class London dialect. Its speakers include Michael Caine. Hello, my name is Michael Caine. Okay, that's terrible. Jason Statham from the Transporter movies. This might be a more familiar example, as is Rose from the first few seasons of the rebooted Doctor Who. But that one's for you nerds out there. Cockney is famously a working class English accent. Cockneys referred to people who lived in East London, especially in the 19th century. And some features of Cockney include the replacement of th with f, like you think so, right? And Cockney is also famous for its rhyming slang. There's a link here in the PowerPoint slide here. But Cockney is a much stronger version of estuary English in a lot of ways. Some of the other accents and regions of British English include the West Country, Bristol, Somerset, Dorset. This is spoken by Simon Pegg, Stephen Merchant, Maisie Williams, aka Arya Stark. It's the language that's spoken. It's the version also of the English accent that's spoken by Sam, Merry, and Frodo in Lord of the Rings. Sorry, not Frodo. Sam, Merry, and Pippin speak West Country English with that Mr. Frodo with that hard R at the end of words. I'm from Somerset. They have like jokey songs over there about people with that accent. I have a combine harvester, and they drink cider and all that. But Frodo, of course, being the gentleman that he is, does not speak in a West Country accent. He speaks pure RP in the Lord of the Rings movies. The West Country accent is also associated. One of the things that if you're familiar with the pirate accent, like "Army hearties," that's actually a variant of the West Country accent. It's perhaps connected to the fact that Bristol, which is in the West Country, was a major seaport, and a lot of British Navy members and sailors come from the city of Bristol, or Brizzle, as they call it. And there's a link here which is posted in the folder for our course, where you can hear examples of the West Country accent being spoken. But it's also possible that there was just one really famous British actor who had a Bristol accent, who was in a lot of pirate movies back in the early 20th century, and that's how we got like Treasure Island and stuff, and that's how we got the whole "Army hearties" thing. Another important regional variety of the English accent, it's a number of accents really, is a group of accents that are collectively referred to as the Northern accents. And these include Yorkshire, Lancashire, Liverpool, Newcastle, or there's a name for Newcastle. I forget what it is. Liverpools are called Scouses, and Mancunians speak Manx. And Geordies, that's what new people from Newcastle are called, and there's a very significant difference in a lot of the ways that Northern English is pronounced than Southern English in England. You can hear examples of the Northern English accent from the Starks in Game of Thrones. Instead of love, they say love, like that. That's a big one. Instead of done, I'm done. It's done. I'm done. There's the great vowel shift has shifted a lot less in Northern English. Pretty much all the Starks, Christopher Eccleston, another Doctor Who reference, John Oliver, if you're familiar with that show, he is kind of a Northern accent, as does Philomena Kunk. I forget the actress's actual name, Diane Gordon, I think. But if you've watched that show on Netflix, Kunk on Earth, she speaks with this kind of melodic Liverpool accent that makes it really funny. And in Britain, in Britain, Northern accents have a lot of the same kind of stigmatized associations as Southern accents do in the United States. They're considered accents that belong to sort of less educated and less cultivated people. These are the stigmas, these are the stereotypes that attach to these accents, whether rightly or wrongly, and mostly wrongly. I can tell you that, any attitudes that I've had about, British accents, being that somebody with a British accent is more intelligent has been dispelled by my time in Canada when I had a lot of British students as exchange students, and I've had plenty of people with Southern accents here in Missouri, and it really has dispelled me of any associations that I might have brought to these accents myself. Northern UK accents do vary more greatly than Southeastern accents, just like Southern accents in the United States vary more greatly than do Middle American accents and Standard American English. So that's England, and I'm really giving it short shrift, but I invite you to go on YouTube and find samples of these accents to hear the differences yourself. There's a lot of great videos out there. I want to talk about other areas of Great Britain and Ireland too, and how English is spoken there. Here is a map of the different language regions of modern UK and the different accents. You can see the West Country here, West Midlands, East Midlands, London, and all the different regions of the Northern accent, from Northern Lancashire and Yorkshire. These are all different Northern accents. And then there's Scots, Ulster, and Southern Hiberno-English. Let's talk a little bit about Scotland, Ireland, and Wales. The languages of Scotland include Scottish English. This is an accent of standard English with distinct vocabulary, but it is not the same as Scots, which is a close relative of English that derives from Northumbrian, but which is not the same as Gaelic, which is Scottish Gaelic, and that is a Celtic language indigenous to Scotland, mainly spoken in the Highlands and Islands, such as the Outer Hebrides over here. This is a kind of a major area of survival of Scottish Gaelic. The dialect of Scots itself, which is derived from Old English along a forking branch that forked way off of the English language, well before Middle English, really, includes Shetlandic, which is spoken in the Shetland Islands and heavily influenced by York, Orcadian, spoken in the Orkney Islands, I think that's way up here, and Ulster Scots, which is spoken in Northern Ireland. Here are some examples of modern Scots. Somebody translated, in the 19th century, the Gospel was translated into Scots under the influence of Scottish national revival. Scots is also the language, if you know the poetry of Robbie Burns, the best laid plans of mice and men, aft Ganagla and all that. That's Scots. Here's know the nativity, and I'm going to butcher the Scots language now, but they've been through worse. Know the nativity of Jesus Christ was this get. When his mother Mary was married till Joseph, when they came together, she was food with born of the Holy Spirit. Okay, that's all I'm going to make you endure that. If you look on the right of this, you will see the first page of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, as they call it in Britain, translated into Scots. Mr. and Mrs. Dursley, on number 4 private loan, were proud to say that they were gay normal. Thank you very much. Okay, again, that's enough of that. Let's talk about English in Ireland. Now, of course, the Irish, one of the features of Ireland, they spoke Celtic. They spoke a Celtic language called Irish or Irish Gaelic. But the English language was brought there over the course of many centuries of conquest and imperialism and suppression of the Irish language. There emerged Hiberno-English, which was the English of Ireland. And you may be familiar with Irish accents from movies or from people you know. The Irish, many great writers of the English language are from Ireland or of Irish background, including Jonathan Swift and George Bernard Shaw, as well as these four dudes up here, William Butler Yeats, one of my faves. He belonged to the Protestant Irish English ascendancy, is from kind of a member of the minor gentry himself, from the West Country of I forget, Sligo, County Sligo is where he was from. But there are three main accent groups in Ireland. Dublin, and if you've heard Gabriel Byrne or Bono of U2 speak, that's a Dublin accent. West Ireland, Cork, Galway, etc. Cillian Murphy, if you've heard him speak in his own accent, speaks in that language, in that accent. He is from Ireland. And then the North, spoken in the part of Ireland that belongs to the United Kingdom. includes Belfast, Ulster, and Derry. Liam Neeson famously speaks this, as does Van Morrison, the singer. And if you really want to get a big dose of the Northern Irish accent, the Ulster accent, you should watch Derry Girls, which many people in North America and maybe even other parts of the UK need to watch with subtitles on, because it's a pretty strong accent, but it's a funny show. The Irish language has been revived over the last 150 years as a result of Irish nationalism, and it's a bilingual country. More and more people speak Irish. Irish had survived mostly in the West Country of Ireland, but it is being brought back, and here's an example of a bilingual road sign showing both the Irish and the English version of various towns. Let's talk lastly about the third nation in what's used to be referred to as the Celtic Fringe, and that is Wales. Wales is a place where people speak Welsh, which is the descendant of the Brittonic language that was spoken all across Britain before the Angles and the Saxons and the Jutes invaded. And Wales is a bilingual nation with both English and Welsh as official languages. The Anglo-Welsh dialect is a unique vocabulary, pronunciation, and grammar influenced by Welsh, and it includes a number of Welsh loanwords and calques, and Welsh people are very proficient at code switching. In most urban areas, as you can see here in this map of Wales, that the fewest people who speak Welsh are down here, and this is where the city of Cardiff is, which is that was my attempt at a Welsh accent. Cardiff, I'm going down to Cardiff, love. Sorry about that, Welsh people. But yeah, down here is where Cardiff is, and as you get more rural and farther away from Cardiff and more mountainous and more remote, you get more and more people who speak Welsh. Up here is Aberystwyth, which is kind of the home of the Welsh nationalist movement, and the National University of Wales is there, and so there's a number of Welsh speakers there. And the Welsh Language Act of 1993 saw a successful revival effort in education, culture, and media in the nation of Wales, which objectively has the coolest flag. And that's it for, there's so much more to say about English in the British Isles in modern times, but this is just an overview. This is just a little sampler, a little teaser. But in the next video, we're going to talk about all the places that the UK conquered in the 19th century and what became of English there in places like, India or Nigeria or Kenya. See you later. Bye.